Hello everyone, so good to see you. Us F-Zero fans have had a strange journey on Switch. For most of its life cycle, there wasn't a single hint of the franchise, and considering that this was going to become the third major console in a row without one, we were thinking maybe the series is dead. Or at least left to only make little cameo appearances in other games. Despite all odds, after years of waiting, we got the most miraculous news. F-Zero 99, a completely new game that turned the series into a battle royale racer, was now available. Before that, we were only getting NSO releases of older games. F-Zero for Super Nintendo, which 99 is heavily basing its art style on, practically one-to-one. F-Zero X, which is an achievement in console performance even as far back as the original N64 hardware. We even have all three Game Boy Advance titles, being Maximum Velocity, GP Legend, and Climax. F-Zero Climax was the final entry released before 99 and was originally Japan only. Yet somehow, in 2025, we have nearly every single F-Zero title on the Nintendo Switch. And I mean mainline traditional titles. We didn't get the F-Zero X expansion kit because we also didn't get the N64 disc drive, and unfortunately, that hasn't been re-released in any capacity. And then we have the broadcast satellite F-Zero titles, which were only on the Satellaview. Yet, various content of that game, being the machines and some of the tracks, live on in F-Zero 99 now. In general, us fans have been getting a lot of love, and pretty much every aspect of the series has been represented on the Switch. But there is still one glaring omission, my favorite F-Zero that still beats out 99 to me. One of the best looking GameCube titles that gave the series so much style and personality. A racing game that comes as close to perfection as I can ask for. F-Zero GX. So what is F-Zero GX? Developed by Amusement Vision and published by Sega, this game runs on an enhanced version of the engine used in Super Monkey Ball. This is a very important game, as it was the first significant video game collaboration between Nintendo and Sega. In 2003, the successor to F-Zero X for the N64 released on the Nintendo GameCube. It's a futuristic racing title that focuses heavily on high speed, quick reflexes, and track memorization. While Mario Kart is Nintendo's casual, fun-for-everyone racing game, F-Zero hits a more hardcore audience. This one is no different. Following in its predecessor's footsteps, a total of 30 pilots and their machines can take to the track in gravity-defying stages. You'll be turning through loops, driving upside down, outside of cylinders, over massive jumps, and more. At times, it feels like you're soaring through roller coasters. You might take a quick glance at it and be like, oh my goodness, this is way too fast. And you know, that's fair. I'm not so jaded as to think that this is a game that just anyone can get into. It's always been more niche, catering to an audience seeking a challenging racing game. While the game can be intimidating at first, mastering the various controls is, as with many games that require repetition, very satisfying. Fans of F-Zero will see a lot that they're familiar with, from the classic 4 racers of the original game on SNES, now fully realized in 3D, to the thematic tracks that many people are familiar with, like Mute City and Big Blue. These were very impressive in F-Zero X, and the designs for GX takes those ideas and scope to the next level. Despite having over 30 machines to tackle these tracks with, each one has unique weight and stats that handle differently. Some might have tighter grip or control, while others may not be able to strafe as easily. That's something to be aware of in F-Zero titles. Machines can be very sensitive to the point where the gentlest touch can mean the difference between finishing first place or flying right off the track. Some machines are more nimble and can weave around through a crowd, while others are built like a tank and hardly flinch to others that ram into it. And then there's some that benefit from more powerful boosts than others. The boost mechanic has always been one of my favorite aspects of F-Zero. Everyone has a health bar, or rather an energy meter, which starts out red with every race. Lap 1 is always meant to get your bearings for each track. Hitting a wall or other racers will deplete your energy, but you can heal back up at these pinkish pit stops. By lap 2, you're given the ability to manually give yourself a speed boost at any given time that you want. The thing is, this is tied to the exact same energy meter that's keeping you alive. Therein lies the ultimate risk versus reward the series has become known for. Boost more and bring yourself closer to death, or play it safe but risk falling behind. It's that careful management of your energy and mastery over when to boost that's the key to getting first place in a game as aggressive as this. And I do mean aggressive. Another one of your options is, while racing, press the X button and move left and right. Your machine will shift to the side and for a split second have a lot of attack power to anyone next to you. If you time it just right, you could KO another racer in the blink of an eye and restore some energy in the process. F-Zero GX, like other games in the series, encourages being mean to others, but in moderation. Side attacks will decrease your speed if you do it too many times in a row, and you'll start losing control of your machine if you're not careful. You can't get too happy with it, unfortunately. If you want, you can press the Z button and you'll enter a spin attack. These are powerful in a crowd, but it's a little bit unruly if you're trying to focus in on a race. If you really have a vendetta against someone, side attacks, when mastered, are much more efficient. If you understand how to control the way it affects the maneuverability of your machine, you'll be an absolute menace on the playing field. And speaking of control, you can even go in the first person mode if you want to feel like you're in the seats and, oh my god, for as dynamic as this is, I think I'm gonna be sick. Can you imagine this in VR? I think that actually does exist somewhere. I'd be trained and ready for NASA if I played the game like that. So, controls are all well and good, but what about the tracks themselves? After all, these games are pretty much identified by the quality and presentation of the courses that we race on. Keep in mind that this is coming from an F-Zero fanatic, but to me, GX offers some of the coolest track designs that I've ever seen in a racing game. There are 5 total cups, 3 to start, 2 unlockable, each with 5 tracks, all 3 laps each. The Ruby Cup is up first, and this is unsurprisingly beginner friendly and meant to introduce you to the gameplay. Tracks like Mute City, Twist Road are typically fairly wide and open with a lot of opportunities to boost, either from the panels on the track or from your own boost power. Casino Palace Split Oval is kind of like Silence from the F-Zero X, where the second race of the first cup is just an oval, but with many boost panels to introduce to you the kind of blinding speeds which you can reach. Many of these first tracks allow for all 30 races to have a relatively wide breathing room, few obstacles, and just a couple of sharper turns to encourage you to learn. The Sand Ocean and Lightning tracks after this one are also meant to get you used to the speed and controls, with increasingly larger winding areas to play around with. The last track of this cup, Aeropolis Multiplex, is the first track that I feel begins to introduce you to the potential of advanced techniques. It also has you dealing with hazards like dirt that slows you down and ice that makes you slip and slide. This was one of my favorite tracks early on because it helped me to get a handle on the different options I had for making quick hairpin turns. That's usually when people start to have trouble in different F-Zero games, but once you start flying through the corners and between other racers, you start to really appreciate the track design. The Sapphire Cup starts with good old Big Blue, which is still pretty standard. Compared to everything else that we've seen so far, it doesn't really stand out too much as a track aside from the aquatic visuals themselves. There's like a single tight turn, but that's nothing. A single weave left and right with the L and R buttons and you'll be fine. You really start to see the track design being played with when we arrive at the second race, Port Town Aerodive. Hey, I've seen this track before! We have been fighting on Port Town Aerodive for almost 2 decades across 3 Smash Bros. Games, and I don't think a lot of people have ever even seen it from this perspective. You could tell me about the hazards and features of this track probably just as much as I could. There's a lot of little jumps, there's this high wall on the side, but one of the biggest features is the Aerodive. This is, I think, the second highest jump in the entire game, where the typical perspective in Smash Bros. Is everyone just coming at you from the background. If you look really carefully, you just might find yourself running over an unsuspecting rat. This track just kind of became a classic by association, but it's still pretty good. Port Town even has a cameo appearance with Rob. It's always good to see you, buddy. Green Plant Mobius Ring is pretty much the blueprint for Mario Circuit and Mario Kart 8. Huh, another track that's in Smash Bros. I just really like the Mobius Strip concept and how pleasing it is when adapted to an anti-gravity racer, you know? It is just a loop again, but the sight of the trees slowly turning with the environment is always very trippy. Port Town Long Pipe, oh now we're getting into the business. F-Zero X introduced the concept of driving on the outside and inside of cylinders, offering a unique perspective that you just couldn't find in other racing games. This track will have you memorizing the position of boost pads as you traverse a small pipe. It then opens up to bigger pipes and pillars to avoid while everyone gets funneled back into the small pipe. This is the track where some people discovered F-Zero GX will make them dizzy or it gives them motion sickness. I'm fine. If you need to look away, I get it and I apologize. But there's also that sense of freedom of boosting without a care in the world because from within the pipe, you can't fall off the course or hit a wall. For the most part, cylinder tracks come down to you and the other racers directly. The last track of this cup, Mute City Serial Gaps, is a bit notorious. You got 90-degree angle turns, mines that explode and drain your energy, blue slip traps, dirt traps, boost pads, jump pads, oh, it's got everything. The most aggravating thing being this small, tiny bar on this jump that has ended many an F-Zero racer. Aw, come on, why does this even have collision? That aside, this starts to put everything that you've been learning so far and squeezes it into a single 3-lap race. It happens to be one of the most dynamic tracks of the game, and there are still 3 cups left. I'm not going to go on about every single bit because we'd be here for much longer than needed, but the Emerald Cup doesn't play around anymore. Firefield was the final track of the original F-Zero and the start of the cup for this one. It looks and feels just as dangerous and erratic as in the old days. You get some crazy concepts like Green Plant Intersection, crossing in and out of the main track in a cylinder, and then weave back and forth between that same cylinder that's going in and out of the main road. Casino Palace Double Branches continuously splits in half, crossing back and forth into each other. You can see other parts of the track and racers on the opposite branches. This has some of the biggest risk versus reward portions we've seen thus far in the game, with things like boost pads, teasing you in the middle of a track with no guardrails. Lightning Half Pipe is scary, man. As you might be able to guess from the name, it is a cylinder but sliced in half, which means everyone is susceptible to fly right off at almost any moment. There's tight turns, boost pads, lasers, and this part of the pipe which is cut and continuously spins around. Of all the things in F-Zero, I can probably do without the half pipes. I just get very tense driving on these, and they're not always predictable at the speeds in which I'm zooming. Oh, but then we end off with Big Blue Ordeal. I hope you like jumping. F-Zero GX is a game in which if you're boosting off of a jump, you can get an insane amount of speed if you know how to manage your movements. For that reason, the ceiling of max speed on this course can get wildly high, and is one of the tracks in particular that highlights the mechanic for how flexible the manual boosting F-Zero is known for can be. The fourth cup, the Diamond Cup, is serious business. The first track takes place on Cosmo Terminal Trident, which is the only time that we ever see this theme in the game. This has to be approached differently from the other tracks. About 95% of it has no railing, and all racers are split between 3 different roads. It's very straight and linear with no tricky turns. You'll realize just how important very gradual inputs from shifting left and right to the tiniest control stick nudges can change so much. On higher difficulties, it's more of a test of endurance and patience. More often than not, your biggest obstacle will be the other machines themselves. Sand Ocean Lateral Shift goes back to a more traditional style, except now the main twist being that the roads just kinda end. You need to very quickly shift left and right to avoid crashing off course. If that wasn't enough, they force you to perform this shifting with no railing, with the road waving up and down, with boost pads, and then making the road this skinny. Some of these tracks need so much focus, man. Move! What do you think this is, F-Zero 99? Believe it or not, Firefield Undulation is probably the tamest track in this cup. Lots of wavy ups and downs along with bumps and jumps. You're probably used to no railings at this point, so there's honestly nothing too unique to write home about. After everything that I've already been through thus far, going up and down like this is just gonna rock me to sleep. Aeropolis Dragon Slope though. Aeropolis is probably my favorite set of tracks, themes, and music in the game. Along with more tight turns, twists, and this devious part that forces you onto hazards, you get the drop. This multi-layer jump looks insane, and it feels very satisfying to leap off at high speeds onto the top tiers. The track as a whole is terrifying and exhilarating. But that brings us to the final track of the Diamond Cup. Phantom Road. The inspiration is painfully obvious though, isn't it? It's just spooky Rainbow Road. This is kind of a rough one, especially if you're not comfortable going through slim roads. I think that the most criminal thing that this track does is layering multiple energy recovery spots, which leads into a drop off the course. It can be punishing, but if you finish it, congrats, you beat the main 4 cups of the game. And yes, I did say there was 5, but hang on, we'll get to that soon. F-Zero GX, as I mentioned throughout the cups, has so many functions within just a few controls. As you continue to start to master the basics, you learn just how deep the system gets. The L and R triggers, when pressed, allows you to slide left and right. If you're already turning and you hold the button down, you will gradually lean into a sharper turn. If you tap turn and press it down immediately together, you'll make a much sharper turn. If you tap down both at the same time when turning, you'll enter a drift. Releasing or holding L and R during a drift will adjust your turn in conjunction with how far you're tilting the stick. Oftentimes, you'll need to press the triggers again to readjust and correct your course. The amount that you need to press or apply, and the responsiveness of these controls, changes with each machine in the game, leaving a massive range of possible control schemes. They're all classified by weight and a general letter grade to stats, but they each have their own quirks. It is a system with an incredible amount of possibilities, which is why hardcore fans are so into the game, and probably why everybody else is scared by it. If you know what you're doing, you can even attempt snaking, a mechanic that the devs were fully aware of when making F-Zero GX. You can use this to break and bring the game to its absolute limit in terms of sheer speed. I do not think I have the hand strength for this. Also, shout out to the community that watches, supports, and speedruns F-Zero games at GDC. The world record runs, the F-Zero Discord community as a whole, you all do some incredible face-melting things that I could only ever dream of doing. All of the footage that I recorded for this video is actual baby stuff compared to what they can do. The other techniques that you'll pick up during the Grand Prix will come in handy whenever you're ready to tackle one of the most infamous campaigns in Nintendo games. F-Zero GX got something that I never expected to see in the series, and probably didn't need it, but got it anyways. We got a story mode. There are 9 total chapters, featuring what I thought were the best looking cutscenes I've ever seen in a game at the time. It's not exactly a gripping tale, more so Captain Falcon going from place to place in pursuit of his nemesis, Black Shadow. It's more so a setup for unique challenges that aren't present in Grand Prix. It's basically F-Zero's version of a mission mode, where the majority of the challenges require more than just racing against 29 others to get first place. You might have to collect enough capsules in 3 laps, compete on tracks unique only to this mode, or race through hell itself. Where do I even begin with story mode? These are some of the hardest missions I have ever played in nearly any Nintendo game. There's only 9 missions because you'll be doing these over and over and over. Some of them are pretty cool, honestly. The chapter with Samurai Goro has you racing through Red Canyon, the only track that uses this location, and is accompanied by a hot remix of the classic theme. It's a one-on-one, except with boulders falling everywhere. These are big boulders, and they seriously get in the way. Some of these boulders roll right off, while others just kinda hang around for you to weave by. You have a single bar of energy with no recovery, so you have to really learn where they roll and land while focusing on also beating Goro at the same time. But this is one of the easier ones. There's a chapter where you can't let your speed fall below a certain threshold or you'll explode and die. This is one super long track with traffic and sudden turns and those dirt traps that slow you down on purpose. Oh, that's so rude! You just gotta breathe, stay calm, and go fast. No problem. There are no checkpoints to any of these, so if you blow up, you'll lose, what have you. That's it, it's back to the beginning. Another chapter has you stepping on the gas to escape a long pathway, which seems easy at first until the doors start closing in on you. You have to really master speed and subtle position correcting to make it through this one. And that's the thing, if you didn't learn it while playing the Grand Prix, this will become all about teaching you different tricks in drifting, strafing, boosting, and so on. Even if you beat the entire story mode. No, you haven't, because once you complete a chapter on normal, you then unlock hard mode. But wait, there's more, because once you complete a chapter on hard mode, you then unlock very hard. I'm not really the kind of person to do the hardest challenges in games. What does that even unlock these days? A trophy? It's whatever. But this game had the audacity to hide the coolest unlockables behind very hard mode clears, and that is completely new racers and machines. The rest of the cast you unlock by clearing cups and buy them at a shop using tickets you earn from just playing the game. That's fine and easy enough, right? At least by this game's standards. But the developers really wanted to put the pain in campaign. These challenges are not for the faint of heart. If you had problems clearing these on normal, this might break your spirit. Some are easier than others, sure, but for the most part, very hard mode will require your reflexes to be razor sharp and play to near perfection. I've done every single cup on Master and placed first, so that's what these stars signify. This is my original GameCube copy, and I'm proud of that. But when it comes to story mode, I haven't completed some of these still. There's some really cool machines and characters here too. I've gotten some, but one of the unlockables that I really want is this little lad here. It's PJ! This machine is called the Groovy Taxi, and everyone pretty much agrees that because Sega was involved with bringing this game to life, it is quite possibly a Crazy Taxi reference. But the story mode is too hard, dang it! I just want my space Uber! I want to show you something. Ironically, the general consensus is that one of the most difficult chapters to complete on very hard mode is Chapter 1, the damn capsule chapter. You have to go around this oval 3 times and collect 35 capsules. You have exactly 1 minute to make 3 laps, get every capsule, and finish the race. The prize for completing this is one of the coolest machines in the game called the Rainbow Phoenix. No, he's not a Captain Falcon knockoff or an alternate universe Captain Rainbow. He's Phoenix. Not that Phoenix. But he is a detective. Since I was a boy, I wanted to race as him, and I would get so close to getting him. Look at this attempt. After finally getting 35 capsules, which in itself is a feat, I failed the mission because I got there milliseconds, actual milliseconds before reaching the goal. Most of my time spent recording footage of this game was me playing this damn chapter because I wanted to prove myself that I'm as big of an F-Zero fan as I claim to be. I tried so hard, my hand was cramping, several attempts were made, with me getting lost and just a fraction too far from picking up a capsule in a lap that I needed to restart. I had to move in ways that I didn't realize I could, getting closer and closer every single time. Like with every chapter, there is a margin of error, but it is so ridiculously small that it's nearly non-existent in this one. And yet, with everything against me, not having played this in so long, my game giving me an error message every now and then, and under the pressure to prove that yes, I am a tryhard, you witnessed before you the entirety of a near-perfect run. The culmination of somebody who likes this game maybe a little bit too much in an attempt to achieve the standards at which most humans can't possibly reach without cheat codes or save states. I became Captain Falcon, every input meticulously honed and refined after countless retries until finally, at the end of it all, and let me tell you, seeing this window after all these years, it fills me with a certain joy that not many people can understand fully, but for those who know, they know. And at the end of that painful road after so many years, I can go into the shop, I can see the man himself available for purchase, and I can finally add him to the roster, knowing that now I can finally retire as a gamer. At least until I remember that I still have to get the Groovy Taxi. No! Don't let your dreams be screams. Yup, I did that as well. Huh. The final chapter really isn't harder than the very first one, but hey, it doesn't matter now. Look at my boy PJ and the Groovy Taxi. It's so beautiful. It's just an actual car. And the Rainbow Phoenix, look at him go. Oh, the wings open when you boost? That's so cool. I don't think I've ever noticed that until just now. You know, it's funny. All these racers I've been trying to unlock on very hard mode, they're all highlighted elsewhere. For some reason, this is the title that Nintendo got very ambitious with. Launching simultaneously with F-Zero GX, which is the GameCube experience, we also got F-Zero AX, which is the arcade experience. This version of the game uses the Triforce arcade system board, which was made from a business alliance between Namco, Nintendo, and Sega. Wow, between this and Smash Bros., Captain Falcon really brings people together. When at the arcade, you would get an exclusive physical driver's license, which records all the points you earn. You could even go to their website and check out the worldwide rankings. It was very cool. And then there's even a slot to put your GameCube memory card in to transfer data between the two. By accumulating points on your license, you can then purchase new machine parts and eventually unlock these tracks and racers straight to F-Zero GX. I can't really think of any other arcade game that lets you transfer data from a memory card to a console like this. And yes, this means that you can unlock new racers without having to do the very punishing story mode. Conveniently, the entirety of AX was discovered to exist within GX, thankfully preserving it since not everyone could find an AX machine back then. You would select a machine, which highlights all the AX races to play as, and all new tracks that you'll find only here. I chose Mute City Sonic Oval to discover Oh, this is chapter 1 from story mode again, but as a proper race. I can't escape it, you guys. I also chose Wally over here and did a round on Aeropolis. He's such a good little boy. There are techniques exclusive to the AX version of this game too. You know how a lot of racing games have a boost to start if you time it right with the countdown? GX does not have that, while AX does. It's not very noticeable, but it does have a quick start, and slows you down if you time it poorly. In this way, it's a lot like the 2D F-Zero games. Drifting and grip physics are completely different with cabinet controls since you'll be using a wheel and pumping on a pedal. The game feels very different if you go beyond just steering and strafing. It takes a lot to master the momentum of either game, especially if you want to conquer master difficulty on every cup. But you might be wondering how I unlock the AX cup when I've never actually visited the arcade. Well, you can unlock them within the base game of GX itself, if you beat every other cup on master difficulty, the hardest in the game. Which, if you saw earlier, I did. And that means if this game gets re-released and remastered, I fear for my sanity of having to do it all over again. But let's quickly run through the AX Cup. Not many people have seen these tracks, even 20 years later. I'd be excited if this was the first time some of you ever saw these. The AX Cup is unique because it quickly runs the gamut from easy beginner tracks to the most insane designs in F-Zero. Aeropolis Screwdrive is pretty basic, but you know, that is so perfectly fine with me right now. It was meant to be easier for arcade visitors to acclimate themselves to F-Zero using a steering wheel and pedals, so there's nothing that exceptionally stands out. But then we get to the next track, and oh my goodness. This is Outer Space Meteor Stream, and it is the only outer space theme across the entirety of F-Zero GX and AX. It has unique music, the cylinder is, what, a pill shape? Entire paths of slip hazards cover the portions inside, and man, just the spectacle of this stage is insane. I love this one, just a clean race with nothing too crazy, and it really makes me wish that there were more tracks with this theme. After that is Port Town Cylinder Wave, which pretty much speaks for itself. What's cool about this is that the track takes an oblong shape, much like the outer space at times, but on the exterior. It splits, twists, cuts in half, and it just feels the most like a roller coaster out of all of these cylinder tracks. You're more focused on hitting boost pads and managing your speed and energy over tight turns, which is always a nice change of pace. And I just love the final jump into the target here. Lightning Thunder Road tries to trip you up with angled turns and narrow paths, as lightning stages tend to do. It's amazing to see how the track shape gets more and more absurd as you continue in this cup. You will probably not be able to clear these without an advanced understanding of turning and fine-tuning your controls by using the L and R triggers. This is one of the final tracks to test you on that. To end it all off, we have Green Plant Spiral, and just... can we look at and admire this track for a moment? What is happening here? Right off the bat, there is a cylinder within a cylinder. Oh, okay. It sort of blends just a little bit of everything across all the other tracks in the game. What I personally love is that you can physically see the checkpoints that were used in the arcade version of the game. These were used to extend your time. They don't do anything here, of course, but it's fun to see that, yeah, this was intended originally for AX, but is now on console. It's such a weird final track because while it is an amalgamation of every other track, it's also not terribly difficult at times and feels kind of more like a victory lap. Overall, one of my favorite cups in the game, if not just for the novelty of it. And if you look carefully, you'll see that whether you unlock them or not, all of the AX racers participate in this each and every time. But without the arcade machine themselves, they're a bit out of reach for many people. So yeah, if anybody happens to have a spare F-Zero AX arcade cabinet lying around, send that to me. And then I can say I have one of the rarest F-Zero games ever to exist. And hold that thought. Hello? Oh hey Brandon, what's up? Yeah, I was just asking if anybody wanted to send me an arcade machine. You're telling me that there's only about a dozen F-Zero AX machines out in the United States and they might not even all be working? Oh, well, thanks for the info. Might as well build my own Blue Falcon at this point. I think the arcade counterpart is the whole reason why we have customizable machines in this game. You can buy parts and save your own creation to your memory card and use it in AX. Or get exclusive parts from the arcade and use them in GX. You can make some pretty broken machines using these parts. You can even make your own emblems? Alright, look, this is as nice as it's going to get using these tools, okay? It's not that bad. I can only artist so hard under pressure. Let's get James McCloud over here and roll out. Huh, not to brag, but this is pretty okay for a 10-minute creation actually. F-Zero has a history with customization, whether it's the track editors in the expansion kit, F-Zero Climax, or customizing your machine in '99. It's quite appreciated. You can even eventually unlock remixed versions of Mute City and Big Blue if the new themes just aren't doing the same for you. Before a race, you can swap them with the press of a button and they are so good. Why did this game go so hard in so many ways? There's a character profile section where you can read up on everyone. By doing so, you can piece together the F-Zero lore, and there's more than you think. Many profiles cite a massive accident that happened 3 years before F-Zero X, which caused several injuries and suspended the F-Zero Grand Prix for a few years. Factions split apart, which established many of the racers in the game, and Captain Falcon was hospitalized. Black Shadow took some of his DNA during that time and created the evil clone Blood Falcon. Their organization stole the Blue Falcon's engine and made his own machine from it, called the Bloodhawk. And that's only one aspect of all the lore in this series. There's a whole universe of characters, and we only see tiny glimpses of it during cutscenes for story mode. Everyone also has a theme song, by the way. Like, if you go into their profiles, there are full, completely composed and sung songs for characters. So what? Read a couple of paragraphs too? Why? Captain Falcon has like Sonic the Hedgehog levels of cheesy butt rock main theme, and it is fantastic.
In this world, you've got to be strong. You've got to fight to keep your spirit alive.
Another one, Dr. Stewart? Why does his theme go this hard? I almost forgot to mention that if you clear any cup on Master, you get a silly little animation of said character. They are really dumb in a fun way, like Captain Falcon's wardrobe malfunction, or Samurai Goro in a VR machine? Some kind of simulation? Did we run out of budget to put him on an actual vehicle? Have you ever wanted to watch the human version of James McCloud get his freak on? You're welcome, and or I'm sorry. While I do miss the awesome comic book aesthetic from games like F-Zero X, Climax, and most recently 99, GX went in a very different direction and nailed it. We leaned more towards realism, huge tracks, and a story mode that shows us more of these characters than we've ever seen before. Everyone is voiced when getting interviewed by our good friend Mr. Zero. The music, while leaning more towards techno and electronico over the heavy rock of X, fits the vibe of each track so perfectly. The quality of this soundtrack holds up extremely well even today. Speaking of music, I've got a bone to pick with Sakurai. So, in every version of Smash since Brawl, Port Town Aerodive, for some reason, doesn't feature the track music that actually plays on it in F-Zero GX. Why? Is it because it wasn't enough of a bop? Is it because the track name is called Like a Snake and he didn't want people to confuse it with Solid Snake? But then why wasn't it in Smash for Wii U? I don't understand! I expect an answer on my desk in the morning, Sakurai. My emails are also open. Please, I just want to know. Some people will say that F-Zero 99 is not a full game, or that it's not the return to form that we wanted. It's unique, and I feel like it's a proper title, but I get people wanting to see a game like GX on there. I didn't even mention the multiplayer because I don't have people to play multiplayer with here in person. That's something we can totally benefit from this being on, say, GameCube NSO, or a remaster, or a completely new title. I feel as though Nintendo is kind of preparing us for something more, you know? I'm happy with where the series is at the moment, but the finishing touch could be to complete the series on the Switch. Bring it over! We're ready! The Switch has a lot of series with nearly every mainline title in its library now, like Xenoblade and Donkey Kong Country. I hope that F-Zero can join them one day. Thank you all so much for watching. That went on longer than I thought it would. Oh boy. Can you tell that I enjoy F-Zero? So I'm curious, what do you think of the F-Zero franchise right now? Have you played F-Zero GX and are you waiting for a potential remaster or re-release? Let me know down below and stay tuned to GVG for more fun things to come. You can support bigger videos like this at patreon.com/gvgaming. You can find us on Bluesky, and I stream on twitch.tv/officialgvg. If you want to hear me ramble about even more GameCube games, I also did a video like this for Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which might be the best Metroid Prime game. I think it'll be fun to run through a lot of GameCube games this year like this, at least until we get GameCube on NSO, which is definitely coming one day, right? Well, that's all for now. Take care of yourself, till we meet again.